Psalm 130, a song of ascents, and I titled it Worth the Wait. We'll go through this psalm actually twice because we're going to look at it from two perspectives. The first one we're going to go through, we're going to look at how this would have been understood and seen when it was written. And the second time we go through it, we're going to look at it, how does it impact my life here today? Okay? So instead of doing those together, we'll do them independently. So basically what we are going to have is we are going to have two studies back to back, to a certain extent. So, and the psalm is called a song, but in reality it also is a prayer. So we have to see this as this is a prayer to a sovereign God. So verses 1 and 2. Out of the depths I have cried to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. And here's what's to you, to the sovereign God. Out of the depths, I'm down here in the depths of my existence, and I'm crying out to you, the sovereign God. Hear my voice. In other words, listen, hearken, hear what I have to say, and be attentive. Not just hear, but hear diligently. And it's like, well, we know God does, but still the psalmist is just pleading for this. And the voice of my supplications. Supplications are prayers for grace and or mercy. So that's what the supplications are. So the guilt of the chosen people is distinctly acknowledged as the cause of calamity, but not as an occasion of despair. In other words, this is a calling out to God, knowing that these calamities are there, and knowing that it is our sin that is causing them, but I'm still not going to despair because I know that I can confess my sin. I can turn. Verses 3 and 4. If you, Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? Here the psalmist is saying, I know I'm guilty. There's just no question about it. I am guilty. Since none can stand, our only hope is to be free is forgiveness. And it's kind of the way it's written there is an expression of a strong confidence that this will happen. Verse 5. Wait for the Lord, my soul. Wait for the Lord. My soul does wait. And in his word do I hope. See, I wait for the Lord because it's all going to happen in his timing. I know that. But also I know in his word are promises that he has made, and I'm going to depend upon those being fulfilled. It's strong confidence that God will hear me. Things will change because of who I am going before, the sovereign Almighty God. Verse 6, my soul waits for the Lord more than the watchman in the morning, and indeed more than the watchman for the morning. Here again we have that repetitive thing going on, which we have ran across quite a number of times in the Psalms. It's just overemphasizing. It's a way of ancient poetry. So it's not, what it's doing is it's saying, I wait like the watchman. In other words, I don't know if anything is going to happen or not, but I'm going to attentively watch. And even more than the watchman does, I'm going to be more attentive. And verse 7, O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is loving kindness, and with him an abundant redemption. This is kind of an exhortation to Israel to indulge the same strong confidence, not just confident in the Lord, but a strong confidence, because my Israel hope in the Lord. And that hope isn't a dry hope or a I hope so type hope. It is a real knowledge and understanding and belief that the Lord is there. His loving kindness is there. And then with him is abundant redemption. And what is redemption? Redemption is deliverance from sin or condemnation. But not only is he hoping in redemption, he's hoping in abundant redemption. In other words, and here again, this hope is a confidence. So there's redemption, abundant redemption, I know is going to happen while I wait. Verse 8. And he will redeem Israel from all his iniquities. Here is now taking it from kind of a hope, and I know, to absolutely this will happen. What will happen is I will be redeemed. Israel will be redeemed. And redeemed from what? From all of its iniquities or all of its sins. The slate is going to be wiped completely clean because we put our hope in you, Lord. And we believe that we will be cleansed completely. This will happen. So it's not like, oh, I've been hoping all along, and I know I got all these problems, but it's and now at the end, I know that I will be redeemed. No doubt whatsoever. Now back to verse 1. Out of the depths I have cried to you, O Lord. And here again, now we're going to look at it. What does it mean to us today? And maybe a better way to put it is, what does this mean to me today? And I will share my thoughts. When our emotions overwhelm us, when circumstances are out of our control, we cry out to our God for help and answers. We've all done that. We have these things that are happening and the emotions. When emotions are driving us, where they end up driving us primarily to bad decisions and bad ways of dealing with stuff. That's the norm. Right? So what do I do when I've got all these emotions, all these things overwhelming me, but I'm trying to deal with it. I cry out to God. I'm not really getting an answer. So what happens next is I lash out at the people I love the most. And it wasn't intended. It wasn't like, well, this will fix it. No, because I'm dealing with emotions instead of thinking clearly, instead of thinking the way I should, I take my problems and I pile them onto somebody else. And generally, it's somebody that I care the most about. Verse 2. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplication. And we don't get an answer. We look at our unworthiness. I look at myself and say, I'm not worthy of any of these blessings I've received from my God. I know that. I know I didn't earn any of this. And even though you might say I have an intellectual understanding of what that means, but since my emotions are what's driving me, I'm not thinking clearly, so I voice my supplications, I don't get an answer. So then where does my mind go? My mind starts wandering off into, I'm thinking back to this situation. If only I had dealt with that better. I'm thinking back to this thing that happened to me. And if I only would have responded in a much wiser way. This question that was asked of me, and the answer I gave was really not very good. The way that I have treated other people, even though I didn't intend to, but because I am dealing with an emotional problem, I'm not dealing with it correctly. I, in turn, am bringing my troubles and realizing that it's my troubles and placing them on somebody else. And even though you might say, I know that my God is there, I know that my God hears, I know my God cares, I'm really not pursuing that route. Why? Because, verse 3, if you, Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? Now I read this and I say, I sure don't have a leg to stand on. Not at all. Okay, so there is absolutely zero reason whatsoever that God should answer my questions, that God should help me out. Because here you said, if you mark iniquities, if you looked at what I have done wrong, if you look at the way that I have lived, the way that I have acted, the list is so big and so huge, how can it be overcome? So I start making a list, okay, kind of this 12-step program or whatever. I'm going to list my failures so that I can do something about them one at a time. And as I'm starting to go through this process, nothing's helping. Having the feeling that God won't answer because I have unrepented sin in my life. Okay, there's another one. Okay, I know I did this, and at the time I really didn't think it was wrong or bad, but it's kind of in the back of my mind. It's been kind of nagging at me. It's kind of like just gnawing away a little bit, just enough to make me realize that I'm a failure. And I compare myself to other people, and they're doing a whole lot better job than I am. But then this little glimmer of light comes in, and I remember Joseph from the Old Testament. Joseph, a young man, really didn't do anything wrong and ended up becoming a slave and ended up being thrown in prison. He didn't do anything wrong. So I had this little glimmer of hope that, if this can happen to Joseph, maybe it's happening to me too. But you know what? There's no way I'm as good as Joseph was. So let's forget that. Verse 4. But there is forgiveness with you, that you may be feared. Okay, I know you forgive, Lord, but I don't feel forgiven. So I cry out even more, and the silence overtakes me. All my friends seem to have this relationship with God figured out. I mean, I look at their lives and I look at the way that they act, and they seem quite happy and content in life. And so, there's people that I go to church with, they've got it all together, and I don't feel as though, why not me? Why don't I have this? They say, just trust him and all will be fine. I've heard that many times. Just trust God. He'll take care of it. You'll feel that peace in your heart, that clarity in your mind. But I don't. I know all those promises are true. I know all those statements that they're making are true. But I'm not feeling it. I'm not knowing it. I'm not understanding it. Verse 5. I wait for the Lord. My soul does wait, and in his word do I hope. Okay, now here comes another thing. Wait. Wait on the Lord. Okay, I've got all these promises. I've got all this instruction. I've got all these things going on. I have all of this emotion. And now the Lord, through his holy word, says, wait. Telling my soul to wait, my mind to wait. And in his word is hope. In other words, in the scripture are the answers. Okay? Well, that's at least something. At least that gives me some place to go. So I read this passage. I read that passage. I believe this. I believe that. But I'm still not feeling it. It still isn't there. There still is something wrong. I know he's real. I know his word is true. But why don't I feel his nearness? Why does he seem so far from me? And how long do I need to wait? Verse 6. My soul waits for the Lord more than the watchman in the morning, indeed, more than the watchman for the morning. It's kind of like, have you ever worked a job with a punch clock? Okay. Most of us have, one time or another. Right? It's Friday. Okay, it's getting towards the end of the shift, and quitting time is 3:30. We're not allowed to punch out at 3:25. Not until 3:30. 3:29 will slide through, but it's kind of questionable. You don't want to do that too often. You get in trouble with the boss. So generally about 3:15, you've pulled yourself off of whatever task you were doing, and you're cleaning up and you're kind of getting ready to go, and then you're standing in line with your card. Of course, they don't do cards anymore, but we're all old people, so we remember cards. Right? For young people, you don't remember the card. It's probably something else now. But anyway, and you're watching that clock tick by, and those minutes seem like hours. And you're just waiting for it to get to that point to where the first person in the line can hit that punch clock. And we know that they're allowed to do 3:29, but it's one of those really goody two-shoe people, and they're going to wait till 3:30. And now you just drug this out so much longer. So now I've got that mindset in my mind, right? All week I've been looking forward to getting off. I've got all these plans for the weekend, all these fun things I'm going to go do. And I just want to get going on it, want to get started on it. I mean, I've got some packing to do, and I've got this to get done and that to get done. And they're standing there waiting for that clock. I could have gotten an extra minute of time if they just would have hit the clock, but they didn't. Or is this where my problem lies? When I call out to God for his help, what I truly want is about me and my comfort, my enjoyment, my pleasure. Those strained relationships, I expect God to fix them. The money problems, I expect God to fix it. He's promised me all these things, so here God, here's my list of problems. Let me know as you get each one fixed so I can go on with my life. Okay, the nagging spouse, he needs to straighten them up. The lazy kids that need to follow what I say. All these things are there. And I did talk to my wife about using the nagging spouse one. That I told her it wasn't her personally. No. Anyway, so we got all these things going on in our life, but we're pursuing self. And if we pursue self, all of these things are true. We can wait as long as we want on our Lord, and he is not going to help us because we're not in that position to where we can be helped. We need to get past self. Verse 7. O Lord, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is loving kindness, and with him is abundant redemption. And where it says, O Israel, I can put in there me. I hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is loving kindness, and with him an abundant redemption. And now I fall back and say, I've heard that all before. Words. They're just words. I've heard these things my whole life. And it just doesn't seem to change anything. Verse 8. And he will redeem Israel from all his iniquities. All of a sudden, I've got all these things going on. I'm not trusting my God to take care of them because I'm wanting it for myself. But he just said that he will redeem me. I'm not fixed yet. But he will fix me. He promises that there. Right there he says, I will fix you. You're doing everything wrong. I know you're doing everything wrong, God says. But I'm here to help you, but not in the way that you expect it. I'm not going to flood your bank account. I'm not going to make your wife more loving and kind. I'm not going to make your kids good. Matter of fact, I might even be bringing you a whole lot of hardship and problems. Because what it is that you need is me, my God says. Stop trying to fix yourself. It doesn't work. God makes his promises, and from all his iniquities, from all of my iniquities, all of my sins, all of my failings, all of my shortcomings, he will deal with if I just wait on the Lord instead of trying to fix it myself. Here's my problem. I wait on the Lord by spending my time on self. He has heard me all along. The answers are ready to be delivered. I need to be more patient and to look back at all of the times he did provide the answers. And that's the thing. If we look back in our lives, even though we're in the midst of these problems and despair, and if we look back in our lives and we say, you know, I've been here before. I should recognize this because it's been this way before, but look what he did. He carried me through it. He provided that genuine hope, that genuine contentment, that genuine joy. I wandered from him. He didn't wander from me. I'll remember that past. It's going to be hard, but it's rewarding. Trust in his time and his way. Not my time, not my way, but his.